Revitalize your health. Dr. Esposito on cellular communication and peak performance. Unlock your body's hidden potential to heal and thrive. Join us for this exclusive interview with Dr. Vincent Esposito, renowned chiropractic expert in cellular detoxification and regeneration. Discover how optimizing cellular communication can unlock peak performance, resilience, and vibrant health. Learn practical strategies to interpret your body's signals and foster an environment where healing and adaptation thrive, even in today's demanding world. Don't miss this opportunity to transform your well being from the inside out. Welcome to the Wellness Driven Life Show, where you're about to go on a wellness driven ride. Let me share a little bit about the guests that we have here today. Dr. Vincent Esposito is a doctor of chiropractic with extensive training in athletic development and performance, nutrition, breathwork, and herbal medicine. He has a particular interest in detoxification and iridology. His philosophy centers on cellular detoxification, regeneration, and the body's innate ability to heal itself when provided with the right conditions. I am so pleased to have welcome to our stage today, Dr. Vincent Esposito. Welcome.
Hi, thank you, April. Thanks for having me on.
It's an absolute pleasure. I am so excited to bring you to the Wellness Driven Life Show and share a little bit more about yourself with our audience. So if you don't mind, please let us know who you are.
Yeah. So, how I got, I guess, talk to like why I got into this, because I feel like if you go down this route, it kind of happens. I kind of joke with people like you're kind of chosen for it more so than you kind of just do it. I think I'm no different. I had kind of my own health struggles. So when I was a kid, actually, I was actually pretty fortunate. I have a couple family members who are chiropractors. So I think relative to other people in my area, I grew up fairly healthy. It really wasn't until I went to college I started having some health issues that I never had before. So I was playing, I played a sport in college. And while I was there, I kind of developed things that I wasn't really used to. So I put on, I'd say the first like 18 or so months of college, I put on about 25 pounds. Now, in my infinite wisdom at the time, I thought that it was, muscle mass for the most part. I was working out more, as part of, our programs, what have you, but it didn't line up with the other things that were going on. So I was developing digestive issues that I never had before. Brain fog, lethargy, fatigue. I've always been a morning person. The first time I had coffee was when I was in college because I just kind of didn't have that kind of perk that I have usually in the morning. And then occasionally it would be just like stiffness, just kind of not moving as well as I feel like I should. And I kind of would bring up some of these things with some of my friends and teammates. And they're kind of joking about it, like, oh, like, it's just getting older. But like in retrospect, I'm 19, 20 years old. It's like that's such a preposterous thing to think at the time. But it was kind of accepted. So while I was there, I worked as a trainer with the head strength and conditioning coach. And I kind of enjoyed helping other kids who were rehabbing, who were coming off of injuries and what have you. And that kind of drove me to go to chiropractic school. So I go there basically right after I graduate, and I kind of bring with me all these health problems that I've had for now the last 2.5, 3 years, and they kind of persist. And it wasn't until a year or so in, I was taking biochemistry, and it was taught by a naturopathic doctor. And she just taught it in a different way than I learned in undergrad. It just kind of piqued my interest in a different way. Just kind of the way she talked about it, the lens she used. And it just so happened the school that I went to had a nutrition program. So it piqued my interest enough. I decided to take both degrees at the same time. And about 2/3 of the way through the nutrition program, I found it super interesting. And that was kind of my deep dive into more holistic remedies outside of, say, just chiropractic and sports medicine. I decided to become, I think, my own first patient, and started making some dietary changes, was more kind of focused on what I was putting in my body, and really didn't change too much else in my life at the time because I wanted to see if it would make a difference. And I would say within the first 2 months, the energy issues, the bowel issues I was having, the need for coffee, all went away. I didn't change my workout routine. I didn't change my sleep. I didn't really change anything else, but I was like, oh, that's pretty powerful. So I'm going to keep going. And I would say by 7, 8 months, all the weight that I put on just kind of came off again, not really changing anything else. And now I'm getting close to the time where I'm going to graduate. And at the time I wanted to go into almost doing purely sports medicine type of work, rehabbing injuries, things like that. But this was so powerful. And I was thinking to myself, I'm grateful that I'm able to learn the information as to the why, but the application is, how, like, it's simple. It might not be easy, but it's simple. And if I could do this, basically teaching myself how to cook and prep and do all this, like anyone else should be able to. And
Mm.
I graduated and started doing some of that too. And then basically from there, it's just been one rabbit hole after the other to just kind of add on to the toolbox. And yeah, that's kind of where we got to today. It just kind of keeps coming. So that was kind of my initiation, if you will, into it.
Oh, well, absolutely. And I couldn't agree with you more. We all when we come into a line of work where we want to serve an audience, our clients, all of the ways in which to live a healthier life, it's oftentimes, more often than not, because we had some sort of issues ourselves and we went down the rabbit hole to find something that worked or something that was so profound to us. Like you mentioned, if this can work for me and it's simplified, anybody can do this. But it's the knowledge, and it's nobody's fault that we live in our time where you go into a supermarket and all you see is candy and bags of chips. The world is designed for us to not live as healthy of a life. But when we have the knowledge and the insight, when we learn from each other, such as on the show, it opens us up to be able to make different choices and feel, satisfaction. You said it took you 2 weeks to start feeling a little bit better, and I'm sure that going into 2 degrees, which is a feat in and of itself, but it opens up a different kind of brain power and capacity, a different sort of energy that you didn't experience in the first place.
For sure. And I think you hit on the biggest part. It's the awareness, like
Yeah.
understanding that virtually all of us, like if you're an American citizen from a health standpoint, are not necessarily set up for success. And this
Right.
isn't, hyperbole of any kind. We spend the most money on healthcare and are basically dead last in any, modernized country as far as health outcomes for any number of the major killers you see: heart disease, cancer, diabetes. You go down the list. We're basically at the top of all of those, yet we spend the most money on healthcare. Like, how does that add up? It doesn't. So you have to look deeper. And I think sometimes the hardest part, I think, of the awareness is it can get overwhelming really fast if you focus on it. So
Yes.
definitely, like, and that's the other part I think of this kind of culture we grow up in, is we kind of want the answer to our problem yesterday, whereas like you kind of have to chip away at it over time. And if you're willing to give yourself the runway to do it, I think you'll get there. if you're willing to kind of chip away at it and give yourself, months to years versus tomorrow.
Ah, you bring up some very important points. And no kidding, it is extraordinarily overwhelming when you first start going into this. There's so much stuff
Yeah.
out there, isn't it? We have one fad after the other, one opinion after the other, and it is difficult to really decide, okay, what am I going to try? What am I going to dive into? How do I not uh, fall into something that isn't going to work for me? Our bodies are all designed a certain way, but at the same time there are some universal truths, right, where because we're designed a certain way, uh, you know a lot of things will work, such as circadian rhythms, so when we go to sleep at certain times, when we rest at certain times, the fact that we have to rest in order to recharge, like our body is like a battery, like our cell phones, and that has to be recharged. We're not supposed to or designed to be living in a high stress mode continuously. And we do find these out more and more as we investigate further. So I would love to know, what were some of the early on things that, that the actual tips or tricks or things that you did and applied that started truly showing you evidence of this is some truth here?
For my own journey or for as it pertains to
Yes.
sleep? Oh, for my own
Yeah. For
journey.
you.
So for
Yeah.
me, like I said, the food thing was the first thing that I changed, and I tried to make it as quote scientific as possible by changing only that. Because I knew if I could, I mean, I could do other things, but I wanted to see like what this one change would do. So for me at the time, what I did specifically was I was never a big dairy consumer, but I cut that out. Definitely cut out gluten and really started to focus and hone in on a higher quantity and variety of fruits and vegetables. I kept it super simple. And even now, so I kind of went towards a journey where I was going more towards being plant-based, and we could go down that rabbit hole if you want, but where I think most people will get the most bang for their buck is you have to realize, at least in America, I'm going to use American numbers, is like 90, I believe it's 90% of Americans don't even consume RDA levels of fruits and vegetables, which if you add them together is like 5 servings a day. That's, in my opinion, embarrassingly low. Yet 9 out of 10 people don't even reach that. So one, that's a big problem. The second part is what the really one thing that I try to in on with people to start is like, can you get to 10? And even if that's mostly
Mm,
fruit, I don't really care. I'm really not too specific on like which ones. I'm more concerned with which ones are you going to eat.
yeah.
And let's just start with that. If you like apples and bananas, great, go for it. Like whatever it is. So to me, that's like the baseline fundamental, and that's where I really kind of leaned into it. And as far as, I mean, we could talk about it if you want, like go down the detoxification side of things. Getting more of those substances that have more of an alkaline ash to it kind of help support kidney function, liver function, lymphatic system function, which kind of helps flush a lot of that stuff out. And it's also really hydrating. So I mentioned kind of bowel problems. Having
Yeah.
more hydrating food that's 90+% water is going to help with that, and fiber. It's going to go a long way. So that was to me like the biggest shift that I think had the biggest difference for me. And it wasn't overnight
Mm,
either. Like I slowly added more over time. I think sometimes people try to lean into it all
yeah.
at once. And then they'll say, oh, well, it backed me up. It's not for me. Or, oh, I didn't feel great after, eating 80 grams of fiber one day after eating 10 for the last, 15 years. It's like, yeah, you're probably not going to feel great. Like you have to adapt to that over time.
Yeah. Well, doesn't
So,
it
yeah.
take like 3 days sometimes for food to move through the system? We don't think about that. We think, okay, like a day, right? In and then out. But that's not how the system works sometimes. It depends on the type of food. And something I really appreciate about what you're saying is that not only is it slow moving, it takes a little bit to acclimate to this as our bodies learn something new, learn how to process these better foods for us, but as long as you're taking in some of the great foods for you. Not that you need to switch your diet overnight, but as long as you start to consume more and more of those better foods for you, you're on the right track.
For sure. Absolutely. And I'd actually prefer people do it that way
Yeah.
because, again, if you lean too far too fast, it can be a little bit intense. There are things known as detox reactions, or they're called Herxheimer reactions, where you have a negative
Yeah.
symptom because there's so much change so fast. And people interpret it as food X making me worse, where that's not really what's happening. It's your body finally starting to kick out the junk that's probably been in there for months to years.
Mm.
And that could show up in any number of ways, from joint pain to skin breakouts to bowel issues. That's where everyone's a little different, and it's tough to say unless you know everyone's background completely, which even working with people, you don't know that completely. But you get a better idea of like where that might manifest based on someone's history. So
Yeah.
that's where I think, sometimes having some of those like lower key symptoms and going slower, you avoid the more intense reactions.
Mm. This is such a wonderful thing that you're bringing it up. And it makes me think of, I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Joe Dispenza, but his work, and I can't recall, and maybe you do, but he calls it like the flu or the influenza or something. But basically, it's about meditation, because when you're doing all of this work and you're going within and you're healing past traumas, and you're moving forward, you can sometimes become ill. It's very fascinating when we're giving our body good things that it can tend to you know revolt, or what's the right word for that, but it doesn't always take kindly to that. It is a process, but as long as you move through that and continue to do the work, then on the other side is such a beautiful thing. And I think he refers to that as crossing the bridge. uh, but I'm a little off with all of that right now.
No, you're on it. And I think that's really a good point, because so much of this comes down to intention. Like,
Yes.
because again, in Western society, like we are told from every media market, every commercial, oh, you have this symptom, take this to numb it out. And
Yeah.
you're doing the opposite of what you're saying, like what Dr. Dispenza recommends. You're not feeling it, you're not working through it. Like
Mm.
if you're avoiding it or suppressing it, at some point, whatever that is going to have to come out. And the more you kind of try to dig it deeper, it usually comes back with a bit more of a vengeance.
It
so
does.
so the more it gets suppressed, kind of the more intense the response is going to be. And that's such a good point. Like at some point you're going to have to kind of feel it or work through it. And that, I think, is actually the hardest part. So when you're talking about intention, when it comes to meditation or really any of these things, it's what is the reason why? Like, why are you doing this? Is it because someone told you online, or is it because you're actually trying to work through whatever that trauma might be? And so much of it, I would say, over my career, that's made the biggest difference is understanding that it's cool to know a lot of the science and learn some of the mechanisms about how some of this stuff works, but so much of it is just it's a mindset shift. And it almost, I don't want to say doesn't matter, because that's really kind of dismissing it, but so much of it is just trying to get into a mindset of like, oh no, I am designed to live here on earth. I am a self-healing, self-repairing, organism like every single other thing on this planet. Why are we told that we're decaying, breaking down over time, et cetera, et cetera? And it's just reinforcing that habit. And it's really hard to break those.
Mm. I very much appreciate how you mentioned that. And so I think it's referred to as crossing the river of change. Maybe that's it. But
Okay, sure.
it's along the same lines, right? You do have to feel uncomfortableness when you are trying to change a system that has been so systematic for so long that it continuously wants to revert back to what it was. So if our bodies are a robot controlled by the mind, that's moving into mindset. It takes a while and it is not comfortable. So I appreciate this conversation. We're going to move into our commercial, and when we get back, let's dive a little bit deeper. Stay tuned. Are you ready to take control of your ride to wellness? Rev up with Driven Living. Visit www.drivenliving.com and buckle up for a journey. Get exclusive access to our Wellness Driven Life Show guest portal, where you can dive deep into the minds of our esteemed guests. Sign up for our newsletter and get insider scoops on these distinguished personalities. It's like having a backstage pass to their life-changing wisdom. But that's not all. You'll also receive a free hug. You heard me right, a free hug. An enlightening ebook from the Driven Living team. Discover the science-backed benefits of hugging yourself. It's a fill-up for your wellness tank. Because at Driven Living, we believe in fueling your journey to wellness, both physically and psychologically. So what are you waiting for? Visit www.drivenliving.com today. Welcome back. We're here with the incredible Dr. Vincent. And so I would love to know, we're on this awesome conversation of what it means to really form new habits in life that benefit our overall well-being. And you shared with me before we came on here that you have a beautiful new addition to your life and to your family. And when we talk about overall well-being and wellness, I would love to dive in to the seasons of life and how life brings us ups and downs. We have births of incredible new additions, but yet there's trials and tribulations there. And then we have tragedies with maybe death or career change, identity crisis. Life is a roller coaster, isn't it? And so how do we navigate that when, especially for those of us who are in the wellness arena, and we strive very much to maintain that and to share that with the world. But it is difficult to maintain all of those buckets of wellness. So let's talk and share a little bit about that. You mentioned to me that sleep is one of the number one things in your life right now that you are working towards enhancing.
Yeah. So it's a really interesting point. Like, I'll get to the sleep, but I want to kind of wrap it up on the habit part. Is one of the things that made the biggest difference for me, and this is the important part we talked about as far as time frames, is one of the studies, I think it was done in 2009 or 10 or somewhere around them. And what researchers found is that effectively 95-ish% of the decisions that we make every day are on autopilot, whether we realize it or not. So most of our daily routine is kind of already predetermined just based on the habits we formed. So if you want to create any new habit, whether it's sleep, like we're just going to talk about, or changing what you're eating or what have you, that what these researchers found is that on average, it takes about 66 days. So, a little bit over 2 months to integrate a new habit so that it goes into that autopilot regime.
Yeah.
Before it kind of kicks in. So what that means is, if you're trying something new, or if something's new to you, it by definition is going to be stressful, even if it's actually good for you, because you're trying to integrate something that is out of your normal routine, which is a stressor in and of itself. So again, the awareness part is important, because I think so many folks give up before 66 days or 2 months. Sure. Because they're like, oh, it didn't work, or oh, it's not long enough. It's no, you kind of have to make it that far first to even give yourself a fair shot. So that's kind of the longer picture. That's why this is a long game type of thing. As far as it goes to sleep, though, I think it's the single most important thing that most people either discount or kind of just throw away, or are willing to take out to fit other things into their lives.
Mm.
Sure, people can cut corners maybe on what they eat, or maybe don't, say exercise every day or what have you. But especially now with so many folks on, screens from the morning we wake up to the morning to the time we go to sleep, it really impacts how much you sleep, how well you sleep, and how much you sleep. And the reason why this is so important is because most of your rest, digest, repair, detox functions happen while you're sleeping. So, one of the questions that I ask all of my patients is, I ask them about their bowel movement frequency. And one of the first things that I try to see if I could get an answer on is, do they have about like when during the day? And ideally, you would want to be having a bowel movement in the morning. Why? Because most of those repair and detox mechanisms happen at night. So usually
Mm.
within roughly the first hour or so of waking, you should have a bowel movement. If that's not the case, or you're having less than one a day, that's a big problem. And a
Mm.
lot of that can go back to sleep, whether it's stress related or diet related or what have you. Um, but if you're not getting that impactful, restful sleep, it's going to impact every single thing down the chain, because all of our cells run on their own circadian rhythm, just like we do, just like the sun and moon has its cycle. That is the circadian rhythm. We as a being have circadian rhythms, but so do each of our organs and each of the cells within those organs. And those are tied to light signals. So, literally where the angle of the sun is in the sky. Now, obviously, over the last 20 years, that's been dramatically changed with the advent of things, like cell phones and screens. I mean, I'm super grateful we get to have this conversation using a laptop, but we also have to understand that this directly is impacting our ability to sleep, rest, and repair. Uh,
Hmm.
so, I do think it's a big reason why you're seeing so many more kids with attention problems, sleep problems, breathing problems, uh, just irritability in general, depression, anxiety. A lot of that's going to be tied back to how well you're sleeping. And almost all the time, you'll see, they're on their phone at midnight or 1 a.m. or whatever. And
Hmm.
that's really the golden time, the peak hours where you're going to get the most bang for your buck, are between roughly like 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. So you really want to be sleeping like ideally more than that, but definitely during those like 6 hours, give or take, at night. So we could certainly go into specifics, but just broad general overview.
It's very good that you bring it up, and I continue to tell my daughters these things. I have one that's just now entering into college and working and doing the college, and I'm like, look, get to bed by 10, get to bed by 10, and no later or what have you, because you're correct. We have to be able again to restore it. Now, when you talk about all of these things that have really had an impact, what are some advice or some words of wisdom that you would have for all of us, where we can really do a better job of restoring the body?
Yeah. So as far as it pertains to sleep,
As far as it pertains to sleep or any other hacks, maybe, you know, being able to get some rest during the day to heighten that, or what
yeah,
words do you have?
yeah. So for sleep, there's a few things. One is to talking about rituals and habits, is to actually create a pretty set ritual to wind down at the end of the day. A few things that we do in our home is, we don't really use any of the overhead lights in our house at night. So we have some salt lamps or warm colored lights
Hmm.
at in areas of the house that we'll turn on at night, that are a little bit softer. They're usually not above your head. There's a reason you want lower lights, if you can get them, in rooms that we use at night, right? So, the bathroom, the living room, the bedroom. So we're not
May I
using.
stop you
Yeah,
for a
sure.
minute? Because
Sure.
of course my brain's like, well, we we wouldn't want them overhead, because similarly to the sun is above us, it tricks our body into thinking that it's still daytime, right? If we have those overhead lights. Am I correct in that?
That's exactly right. So we actually have
Yay!
more, yeah, you're on it. So we actually have more photoreceptors, non-visual. So they're not related to
Yes.
our perception of vision or what we perceive as vision. They're literally just light receptors. There are more of them on the lower part of the eye versus the top because light from the sun is coming from above us down versus straight at us or below. So so it's not an even distribution in the eye itself. So lights overhead are going to be even more impactful, especially if they're in the daytime spectrum, which is what most, well, every light that you have in your house, if it's not an incandescent light, is going to have a lot of blue and green wavelength light in it, which is the signal to our brain through the eye, because again, the eyes are directly connected to the brain via the optic nerve. That it's daytime,
Right.
even though it's 9 o'clock at night, because you're getting wavelengths that are literally unnatural at that time. So that is actually a big thing. So as far as, actionable steps, definitely want to like mitigate the light from exterior sources, particularly as the sun goes down. After that, if you have to be on a screen or you're doing work or what have you, I still say keep as many lights off as possible. Then you can look into things like blue blockers. My experience with them and the people who I've recommended them to, I feel that they do work. But you can't have all the lights on in your house. Like you can't have all the lights on and expect them to kind of work. You kind of have to play with it a little bit. Try to keep it as down as possible. On phones nowadays, on computers, you could certainly put blue light filters on them. And you could certainly go on YouTube nowadays and find like, okay, how do you put a red filter on my phone or on my laptop? Depending on what, if you have an iPhone or an Android or whatever, that would be a big thing. And the other thing I would say for sleep would be have a reason to get out of bed in the morning to kind of, and the reason I say that is I've always found that working backwards, knowing that I have to do X, Y, and Z in the morning means that, okay, I have to get to bed by this time. And like, I have something to do. So, I know I have to get, breakfast done for my family in the morning. That'll be it. Or that's the time that I have to myself to read a little bit or to get a workout in or to go for a morning walk. Have those that schedule in the morning to give you a purpose to go to sleep earlier, because that will give yourself a little bit more of a buy-in. The other thing that was actually, and this is the last thing I'll say on sleep, is the morning is probably the most important. I would say the single most impactful thing for resetting, quote unquote, your circadian rhythm, regulating it, would be to get unfiltered sunlight within the first hour of of sunrise. So not through a glass window, not wearing glasses, not wearing contact lenses. I would say at least 10 to 15 minutes.
I've been hearing so much about that lately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's big because that is what, again, light is the signal for literally where we are in time. So, and where the body is in time. And if we get mixed signals, like being on your phone at midnight, that's throwing off all the other rhythms inside our body in the individual organs. The best way to reset it is that sunlight in the morning. So making that a habit, I would say, is probably like the single most powerful thing you could do when it comes to resetting or re-regulating those circadian rhythm sleep cycles.
Dr. Vincent, you have already shared so many powerful techniques with us. Are there things that you do throughout your day? I know we've touched a lot on diet and on sleep and natural light, and all of those things are so impactful for us. And so can you share a little bit about what is your day look like for your overall well-being? Because you're an expert in so many things and we don't get to touch on all of them today, but maybe if you could walk us through your daily life.
Well, that's changed a lot recently. But generally speaking, I get up, what a general day looks like. I do have a morning routine. So I tend to get up around 5 a.m. Not around, I get up at 5 a.m. I brush my teeth. I'm married to a dentist. My mom's a dentist, so that's never going to be off the table. I usually will do a short meditation or some breathing exercises, or both, depending. And then I will do a workout. So, and especially this time of year, I will do it outside as much as I can. So,
Love that.
so again, you're talking about stacking, if you will, different things. You get morning sunlight and doing a workout outside or walking or whatever it is, but do it outside if you can. Then I really kind of, I'll take a shower. If I'm doing a social media post, I'll do it. And then I get started with my day. Yeah, I tend to eat only twice a day. That's what I prefer. Most of it, a lot of it's fruit for the first meal. The second meal, I'll usually make like a dinner for my wife and I. And then after that, it's just kind of winding down. Like I said, really all the lights are off once the sun goes down. I try not to watch a ton of TV. If we could get a book in, better. And then just kind of wind down. I'm usually in bed, I would say, by 9:30. Yeah. That's about it.
I love that. Your mornings are very, very powerful. And I hear that from so many of the guests we have on the show, is that the start to your day really has such a massive effect on how the rest of the day continues. And the routine factor in play is so big. Thank you so much for sharing that with us and our audience here today, Dr. Vincent. You have inspired me, although I know this is silly, but I almost want to start lighting candles, thinking way back in the day where we utilized those old-fashioned candles. And yet I know that we have lots of things and tools and resources for lighting that is better for us, that probably would last a lot longer than a candle. But you are inspiring and have put a lot of different insights in my wheelhouse, so I appreciate. What are you most excited about creating right now?
So I'm working on two. Well, one I actually just finished. It inspired by becoming a parent, a month and a half ago. And because I've worked, thank you. Is I actually came out with an ebook recently, and it's called The Holistic Child's Medicine Cabinet. And the reason I put it together was, and it's kind of like a combination between like how to raise healthy children, but also like what to have in a first aid kit, just in case, things come up when you have kids. So,
because they will.
Right. Exactly. It's just a matter of time. It will happen. And I've certainly worked with parents and children before. So I'm like, okay, why don't I just put it all in one place? So it's pretty actionable. I didn't really put too much of the why in there. It's more of like the actual protocols and how to do it and things of that nature. Didn't go too deep into, the mechanisms of everything. But if you're looking for like, okay, what do I include? What do I need? Some of the philosophy behind it, it's all there. And again, because, the trajectory we're on, the reason why I'm super passionate about getting in touch with kids is because, the trajectory we're on from a health standpoint as a country is horrific. Healthcare expenditure alone, if we didn't have other issues, are going to bankrupt America in and of itself within probably our lifetime. So, this is serious. And the truth is, so much of this stuff is in our control. And while it's great to, I think, help adults and work with them, I think kids certainly you can have more of an impact on, and they can impact, hopefully, their children. Because they are still, I think, a bit more impressionable. So if you can teach them and be an example for them as a parent, you're going to leave, the future generations of human beings in a much better place to maybe clean up some of the mess that we've made as a collective. So to me, I think if you are the example, if you lead by example, kids are super smart. They pick up on that. So, to me, that's why I wanted to come out with that. And it seems like there's been some good feedback. I launched it 2 days ago. So haven't had too much, but it's, to me, that's something that I want to put more focus in, because I understand. I mean, this is the world that my daughter now is going to be a part of. So, it is important.
Well, you are ahead of the curve with some parents. I was a very, very young parent, and to know and understand, come to the understanding that you are the example, and to lead by example is so key. And that you can't control everything, but when you're being that example, they do pick up on that and they will follow suit, even though it may not seem so at first.
Right.
Eventually, it does catch on. So just have a little patience there.
For sure.
So beautiful. It has been such a pleasure to have you with us on the Wellness Driven Life Show. Thank you so much. And I have applauded you earlier for being a light in the world. You've got a beautiful following that is happening. And so if you've gotten along with the conversation thus far, please be sure to follow him. His handle is Vincent Esposito, I believe, at Vincent Esposito. And you can see here on the screen, if you're watching, www.insideouthealthwellness.com for those of you listening in. And it is also in the description below. Thank you so much again, Dr. Vincent, for being on the Wellness Driven Life Show. Is there anything else you want to share with our audience today?
Yeah. I just want to say, I know we touched on a lot of different things, and we could certainly go deeper on a lot of them, but the most important thing is I want to just bring it back to like intention, and really understanding like what your why is, what your purpose is going to shape so much of what you can do. So, and even when things like seem dire, or there's injuries, or maybe there's, some sort of, symptoms you might be feeling where it might feel hopeless, like you have to realize sometimes those things are there to teach us a lesson, even though it might not seem like it. And if you frame it like, oh, this is something that I can learn from, this is something that I can grow from, this is something I could become better from, you will see better results over time. So, and I know it's hard because it's a big set shift, but it does make, in my opinion, the biggest difference.
I couldn't agree with you more. Reframing it is huge. Wonderful.
Absolutely.
Beautiful, beautiful words. Thank you so, so much, Dr. Vincent, for being a guest on the show. And thank you so much to our audience, because without you, the show wouldn't be possible. We'd love to hear your feedback. Leave your comments in the comment section below. I personally get back to each and every single one. So thank you again. Goodbye for now, and we will see you next time.